Greetings, peace and blessings be unto you. I am Minister Jamie Eatman, and I am on the rise. I'd like to thank you all for joining me, those of you who shall join me at the moment, and those of you who shall inquire or encounter this video later. I pray someone thinks enough of it to share it with you, but if not, you get to it, you were meant to see it. And if you don't, you'll never know. So, having said that, let us pray. Most Holy Father, we most humbly come before you, giving you honor, giving you glory, and giving you praise. And Father, we just thank you for all that you're doing, and all the promises that lay ahead of us. And Father, I just pray that you open our eyes, our ears, our minds, and our hearts, that we might indeed be able to go forward with a sense of hopefulness. We might be able to indeed go forward, educating, motivating, and inspiring individuals to rise above life situations and circumstances. We might properly use your word to instruct, to teach, to reprove, to correct, to exalt, and its many other uses. So we just pray right now that as we go through this program, something's going to be said that's going to make a difference in someone's life, and that somehow you're glorified in the process. We give you honor, glory, and praise. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right. Greetings, everyone. Peace and blessings be unto you. I am Minister Jamie Eatman, and I am on the rise. And I would definitely encourage you all to join me as well. Our topic for today is Rise to the Occasion. Hopefully that sounds familiar to some of you. We just did Rise to the Occasion Part 3 on Rise to Prosperity. Rise to Prosperity is a program that airs on Wednesdays from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. As you know, the show today is from Friday, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. But anything that deals with the Rise, that particularly deals with On the Rise Network and Outreach, which is the company that sponsors both of these programs, is going to have a lot in common. And today we're going to talk about the topic of rising to the occasion. There's a lot to consider when you think about those words, rise to the occasion. How many times do we fail to rise to the occasion? I mean, no need to answer that. But if you think back over your life, there are some times when you've had an opportunity to rise that you may not have done so. And there's been some times when you may have felt you rose to the occasion. And just when you thought you did your greatest job, somebody else looked at it as though you could have done more, you could have done better. That's the way things are. We're going to talk about some things that have impact on where we are when we rise to the occasion. But we're going to talk about some occasions that we definitely have to rise to. We're going to tie this into some historical things, to some things at the moment, and hopefully going to inspire you to, as you rise to the occasion and move ahead, that might impact how much influence you might have on tomorrow. Yesterday has had an impact on us. Today is a matter of how we respond. But tomorrow we have an opportunity to impact somebody else's life as well as our own. So having said that, I did want to share this with you. And as you all look at this, I'm quite proud of it. It is a new concept. Listen.
This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism.
Tonight, for one, will join in with anyone. Don't care what color you are, as long as you want to change this miserable condition that exists on this earth.
Greetings, I am Jamie Eatman. Join me Fridays at 8 p.m. to our On the Rise movement. And in order to do that, you've got to rise. You got to rise to the occasion, because it just isn't going to just jump on your screen, your phone, your computer, or however you watch us. It's a matter of your having or desiring to actively participate. So having said that, at this point, we're about to get started. Before we get started, I want to show you all a video here that really has a lot to do with why it's important that we rise. And this is a video here that's done by Dr. King, and it pertains to the topic of reparation. You'll never hear him say the word, but that's really what it's about. If you listen closely, you'll get it. And I'm going to get that up here in 1 second. Just bear with me. And I pray that as you all listen, hopefully you'll be able to hear some of what I heard. But if not, whatever it is you hear, I'm hoping that it will be useful for you.
So we suffer from a kind of poverty of the spirit which stands in glaring contrast to our scientific and technological abundance. The problem is, my friends, that we have learned to fly the air like birds, and we have learned to swim the seas like fish, and yet we haven't learned to walk the earth like brothers and sisters. Racial injustice is still the black man's burden and the white man's shame. So wherever we live in America, we have to face the fact honestly that racial discrimination is present. So don't get complacent. Certainly we've made some strides. We've made some progress here and there, but it hasn't been enough. It hasn't been fast enough. And although we've come a long, long way, we still have a long, long way to go. In 1863, the Negro was freed from the bondage of physical slavery through the Emancipation Proclamation signed by Abraham Lincoln. But the Negro was not given any land to make that freedom meaningful. And you know, it was something like having a man in jail for years and years, and then you suddenly discover that this man is innocent. And go to him and say, now you are free. The man's been unjustly jailed for 35 or 40 years, and you just put him out of jail saying, now you are free. You don't give him any bus fare to get to town, no money to buy any clothes, no money to get something to eat. This is what happened to the black man in this country. I can't limit my concern to the middle class. I can't limit my concern to this particular situation where a Negro comes and says, I'm the first this. I'm just tired of the first Negro. I want some seconds and some thirds and some fourths. The civil rights movement has to address itself to this, and the nation has to do it. You see, we are such a rich nation and affluent nation. We often don't see the poor. There are some, you see, most white people can't see the poor because they live in the suburbs. And then they get in town in these big cities on expressways. They don't know nothing about Watts. They've never been there. They don't know anything about Huff in Cleveland or the west side or the south side of Chicago or Harlem. They've never seen it. And they allow the poor to become invisible. And a lot of Negroes, you know, who have somehow sailed or floated out of the backwaters or the muddy waters, and they've kind of been able to ease out into the fresh-flowing waters of the mainstream, have forgotten the stench of the backwater. And I can hear a voice saying that wasn't enough. I was hungry, and you fed me not. I was naked, and you clothed me not. I needed shelter, and you didn't give it to me. I needed a drink of water. And in a world that's 3/4 water, you made me pay a water bill.
All right. I love that video, that audio. I listened to it on the last week's program, well, earlier during the weekend. I wanted to make sure that as it came forward, you all had a chance to hear it, because as I go forward, my speaking is based on something. And if you look at the words that Dr. King spoke, that was in his day. Think about all the more technological advances that have been made. Think about the society we live in today. He made reference to the middle class. You know, supposedly, depending on who you listen to, there's no longer a middle class. They're just those who are rich and those who are not. But as we look at what he was saying, Dr. King never mentioned the word reparation, but he said that there were some things that needed to be done. And if those things that need to be done are going to be done, somebody has to bring them into being. Somebody has to go and voice enough votes, voice enough that people will hear and begin to realize that they will not be avoided. There's a story in the Bible about a person who kept going to the person that was in authority, and he kept going and he kept going. And the person actually gave them what they wanted, not because of their faith or their fear of God, but because of the person's persistence. We're going to have to be persistent at some things in life. And some of us are going to have to be more persistent than others because God has given some of us something to do. There's a saying that many are called, but few are chosen. There's some tasks that some of us are chosen for. It isn't just a call. It's a choosing. And just being chosen does not permit us to rise to the occasion. Topic today, as I stated earlier, is about just that, to rise to the occasion. We have to be willing to rise to the occasion because God is doing some things. God has always been doing some things. As people move forward, they move forward with hope. Some have moved forward with a sense of hopelessness. Some have moved forward with a sense of fear. Some have moved forward, some have failed to move forward. Some have become complacent. Some have been so fearful that they wouldn't move. Some have been so fearful, if you think about, especially during slavery, people, they could have gone free but did not. There's a saying that there came a point where the chains were taken off, but because of slave mindset still existed, that the people did not attempt to go free because they were so conditioned by slavery, or they had a slave mindset. My brother Jerry Brown just states, hello, friend. This is a year in which every single voter must cast a ballot or our freedom will continue to be lost. I love what he's saying. It's freedom being lost. I wish Brother Brown was here to address exactly what he means. But the freedom that if you don't exercise it, it can be lost. The fact that he mentioned every single voter, we do need to vote if we believe in a particular candidate more so than the other. And I love the way Brother Brown, he's persistent about getting that vote out, getting out to vote. There was a day in our churches when people gathered together and they knew who they were voting for and they knew why they were voting for them. Because, just choosing between two really don't matter if it's just a matter of somebody occupying the office. Who is being elected and why? It's important that we become informed. And today, unfortunately, there are so many people that the only thing that would sway their vote is that they don't want to vote for Trump. And on the other side of the fence, there's those people that if they couldn't vote for Trump, they probably wouldn't vote. But nonetheless, there's a country that needs ruling or leadership. And whoever goes into the office, we need not stop being concerned because we have cast the vote. We need to follow through. Those individuals that know how to lobby for gun control, that know how to lobby for gay rights and all these other things that we seem to be bombarded with, they need to uphold or have those same expectations of those individuals that went into office. And maybe we need to kind of change our cry, our concern about some things. It might make a difference in how this country prospers. Again, I'm Minister Jamie Eatman, and you are watching Rise to Prosperity. Actually, that is our Wednesday show. But this show is about rising to prosperity, but it's called the Rise Movement. And when you think about what I'm saying to you, this Rise Movement is something that doesn't just happen. Somebody has to make it happen. Even if it's, if you think about the choice of a movement, I didn't just say movement, I said the On the Rise movement. We can always move. There's some of us will go a certain distance, then we become afraid and we'll run back the other way. We're still moving, but we want to move purposefully. We want to move in a direction that's going to serve not just us, but those who come after us, those that are to our right and those that are to our left. Those who, as we look at our history, we also have to look at theirs. Those who, as they look at their history, as the quote was made by Dr. King. He said it was one thing was the burden of the black man, but the shame of the white man. So in other words, we see that this is something we have these two different views on. And these two different views isn't something that's simply because of race. It's historical. And we have to be aware of the past, because if we're not aware of the past, it might be something that comes and haunts you in your future. So I asked the question here. This is the question I have for you. The impact of the following. What are the impact of the following? These particular choices are choices from the show on Wednesday. If you were watching the show on Wednesday, you would have heard a lot more discussion concerning. But I reworded it slightly. Let's talk about the impact of these issues. A lack of preparation. I remember a speech that I heard Dr. King speak. It grabbed my ear. It actually inspired me. He was speaking to the people in his day, but it motivated me even in mine. He said that we have to be prepared to move into. What he was alluding to was there were some things that they were fighting for, and when those things became available, they had to be prepared to move into them. And because they were possibilities that they would be available to them, he wanted to emphasize the importance of being prepared. Greetings, my dear sister, my brother. Peace and blessings be unto you. That's the Dixon CC and Pastor Dixon. God bless you both. But preparation is very important. So when we think about the term preparation, we want to be prepared. Even as a Boy Scout, I learned earlier that I love that saying, be prepared. You know, that's a simple term. And for those of us who may have heard it from our childhood forward, I hope it hadn't lost its significance to us. But you always want to be prepared, because lack of preparation, it doesn't make a difference if something is made available to you and you're not prepared. If you can imagine somebody gave you a jet today, if you didn't know how to fly it, or you couldn't afford someone to fly it for you, what good would the jet be to you? And that's like some of the things that we were asking for. That comment were made about being prepared, because there would be some doors that would open. And as those doors open, we had to be prepared to enter into them. Lack of preparation. You know, some of us are still guilty of that today. There's been some opportunities that have availed themselves. We were not able to take advantage of them, because in some instances we were not prepared. And some of us may feel that we are over prepared for what we are doing now, but we need to come to realize that there's a word called complacent, and there's a word called contentment. A person who is complacent, they're not looking to do anything different. As Dr. King said, they're the first this and the first that. And when those individuals get to become the first this and the first that, he also alluded to having some that come behind them that's the second this, that, or the third this, or the third that. That becomes equally as important, but we can only do that when we are prepared. The second concern here, or the question, is what difference or what impact does risk or change have? You know, risk and change. When we look at our lives, those are things there that they impact all of these, but risk and change, how risky is something? I love the words of Dr. King. He, in one of his speeches, he said that there were kind of three things that motivated people. That some people would ask, was it basically financial? Say, what's it worth? How much are you going to pay me? How profitable is it? That was the word, profitable. And the person who is doing it for profit, that person, some people might say that that person sold out. And if they didn't sold out, it's possible that they could be bought out. But in any case, we need to realize that there are some people that are only moved by money that have an interest in profit. Then there's those who have an interest in popularity. Is it popular? If it's not popular, it doesn't appeal to certain people, because they want to be out front. They want to be the number one in and at everything. On Wednesday, we had a discussion concerning the drum major instinct. Time permitting, I'll share the video with you. But that's something we need to know. Do we have it? And if we don't have it, we need to respect those who do, because if we're going to go someplace, somebody has to be out front. May not be the best leader. If you're wise enough, you'll know that you can lead from the middle, or you can even lead from the rear. You just have to know how to communicate. So it doesn't matter if you're out front, in the middle, or behind. As a saying I use, which says, lead, follow or get the hell out of the way. The person up front can be in the way. The person in the middle could be in the way. The person behind you may not believe it, but he can be in the way because the person in behind needs to be doing some pushing. You don't want the wrong voice rumbling up front from the back. So some of us are in the way, whereas some of us, can be in the way no matter how busy we look, because to whom much is given, much is required. And if we're not living up to those things that God has given to us, are we really being profitable? I don't mean profit as we're gaining profit. I mean, when God gives things, the Bible says that he gave certain gifts, and those gifts that he gave, they were for the body, they were for his people. So when God gives an individual something, if he's going to exercise it, then it builds the kingdom, then it serves God's purpose, then it's profitable. But if it's not profitable, that means that somebody is using it for their own gain. Somebody is failing to do what it is that they've been called to do. So when we look at it from that perspective, those are the type of things there that bring about change, and they all come with risk. Can you imagine you've gone through life and let's go back to that statement. You're the first this. You have the respect of your peers. And imagine being the first. Because you're the first, that tells you already that you're not surrounded by too many people of color. When we use the term first as it was used there, it was referring to a time when there were certain achievements that we as people of color had not made. So the first person was the one who had made that achievement that now was surrounded by his white peers. So here it is now that he has arrived. He was in a position of risk. Do I do this to help my people? Do I do this to bring about change? And if the person fails to do that, that speaks concerning their character. That speaks concerning who that individual is. If you think for a moment, Obama, when he was running for president, he was known for change. He even wrote a book about change. So when you think about what he represented, first Black president here, well, actually, that's debatable because there's some people when they go through history, there was another Black man that was in office during a time of transition, but naturally, history doesn't record that so regularly. So we're going to give that to, with my having added that, we're going to give that to Obama. So here's Obama, and some would argue that he didn't do much for white people. Some would argue that some of the things that are allowed, that occurred, could only have occurred if they had someone in office that they could have used or pacified the people in doing what they did. But nonetheless, he was there. My point is, when it comes to being an individual and rising to the occasion, which is what we're talking about, rise to the occasion, it comes with risk. It comes with change. There's some people that you may used to know that you may seem like you don't know anymore. There's some places that you may used to go, but you won't be able to go anymore. There was something I saw on television. If you all remember, what's his name? Spike Lee. Not Spike Lee. What was his name? The little comedian guy that did the show for the football player. And he told him, he said that you won't be able to entertain the same people. You won't be able to get certain guests on your program. And he told him that. But as I was coming down for the program, I saw something on the internet that said that he had been fired, and they had this picture there that said, the guy told him, I told you. So he was implying that I told you that you would possibly lose your show or your prosperity. But in any case, that show that he did, that the two of them did, was supposedly one of the most popular. As a matter of fact, they say that it broke the internet. And for a talk show, it was supposed to be the most popular. But as a result of that, it came with risk. So where change and risk come into play, we have to be prepared for that. That's where the decision to rise to the occasion comes in. Not everybody probably would have done that show. I'm still trying to think of that guy's name. When it comes to me, I'll share it with you. Or maybe if you all know it, please type it in the room. But it was the little comedian guy that recently did the show that's so popular now that everybody is giving all this respect and accolades to. But that's the possibility of risk. Now, the other factor is fear. Most people don't realize how important fear is. Fear is actually a motivator. When you look at fear, when you think about it in the Bible, when it says that fear is the beginning of wisdom, if we're going to come before God, we should do so with a fear that eventually becomes a reverence. But until you know what it is that you're getting into, you don't know. So therefore, that fear is respectable. That fear is going to cause you to act or behave a certain way. But it should never cripple you, because when fear starts to cripple an individual, that individual can't rise to the occasion, period. And when you can't rise to the occasion, you can't rise above the situation and the circumstances. So when we're talking about an occasion to rise to the occasion, we're talking about something here that's presented to you as a group, an individual, whatever it is. You're a part of something that requires, you actually might say, a commitment on your part. And when you make that commitment, that's when you begin to rise. That's when you're willing to rise to the occasion. You're not concerned with how prepared you are, because this isn't an occasion that you're going to let pass you by. So you're willing to give it all you have. You're not worried about the risk or the change that may come about as a result of it. You're willing to give it all that you have. So this fear that comes up, this is a fear that we have to be able to overcome. And we can actually use that fear as a motivator. I don't know about you all, but I've gone through some things in my life where fear had crippled me. And when I look back and I saw what fear had done to me, I made it up in my mind that I would not be crippled by fear again. I've done a lot of things that caused me to rise to the occasion. And as I rose to the occasion, I may not have always overcome those situations, but I did take them on. I did rise to the occasion. I did do my best at it. I think about the words that say, be the best at whatever you are. If you can't be a tree, be a bush. If you can't be a bush, how does it go? Can't be the highway, be a trail. It's not by size that you win or lose. So whatever it is you're doing, you got to have the commitment to do it. Well, welcome, Sister Dumas. Thank you very much. But as I move forward, I'm just saying fear. When fear comes in, there comes a point where you have to realize that how crippling fear can be. And if you think about a man that had plenty of reason to fear, there's been several. As a matter of fact, there was two men that lived their lives in parallels. You know, when something is parallel, people think it never crosses. These men, their lives may have been parallel, but when God is in the middle, there's like this thing that's in the earth, they run parallel. But when there's something above it that they both are ordered by, that is parallel, which is on both sides, it meets at top. And at the top there, that's where God is. And where God is, these two men were instruments of God to bring about a change in an individual's life. And when we begin to realize that, as the quote goes, it says that truth is forever on the scaffold. The scaffold is that thing that they use on the side of buildings when they're laying the concrete, when they're building a structure. But it says that truth it's up on the scaffold and wrong is forever on the throne. In other words, regardless of how much building you do, it always seems like wrong is in charge, or whatever it is. It always seems to be some edifices for wrong that is actually being created. But it says, but in the dim, in the dark unknown stands God, keeping watch above his own. So if we will go and do with that thought in mind, we will rise to the occasion. And once we rise to the occasion, then we begin to rise above and beyond the situations and the circumstances. And that's where the real work is, when we begin to rise above. But before we can do the work, we have to first rise to the occasion. You know, there's that thing in the military. You would think that if you volunteered enough, you'd always get some type of benefit. But it never happened. But they were always asking for volunteers. And it's that way now. It isn't that someone is asking for volunteers because many people had their way. There are some that would not want you to volunteer. They would not want you to rise to the occasion because they are happy with things the way they are. They may be the one that's benefited by what's going on. They may be the first versus the second, third, or fourth. They may benefit, or should I say they may lose or be in a lesser position as a result of righteousness coming forth. But those are individuals there that when we kind of take inventory, you have to ask yourself, if what I'm doing, if I'm not doing it because it's popular, if I'm not doing it because it's political, then why am I doing it? Because there comes a point, that third thing is you're doing it because it's the right thing to do. And if it's the right thing to do, then there's going to be some people that's going to oppose the right thing, because the right things, what does it do? It brings about risk. It brings about change. People fear change and they are not prepared for it. So you look at all three of those things there and how they come into play. They will not only cripple people, they will cause people to be against you. But if God calls you to the occasion, you need to be able to rise to it. And when God gives it to you to do, puts it on your heart to do, puts it in your spirit to do, then you're not doing it for the people, which is number 4, opinions. Opinions, people are going to always have an opinion. And those opinions are going to vary one way or another. You can't please all the people all the time. Somebody might love you today, but you go out here and you speak a word of truth and they may dislike you tomorrow. Someone may be for you today when you go out here and say what needs to be said because it's the right thing to say. Now they're against you. But we need to not worry about people. And when we stop worrying about people, then we're ready. We're ready for whatever it is that we're supposed to be doing. But as long as we're tied up, if we're tied up by the thought, I'm not prepared. If your mindset is I'm not prepared, then you're not going to rise to the occasion. You're not going to approach it with the right mindset. You're not going to approach it with the right spirit. If you're worried about the risk of the change that might occur, you're going to do it haphazardly because you're already worried, or even the next word, fearful. You're already fearful. And if you're worried about what people say, if you're a people pleaser, you're the last person that should be out front as it pertains to anything. And why do I say that? Because you can never please all the people. You have to be the one that's going to stand for what's right. And if you stand for what's right today, it might benefit your children tomorrow. If you think about doing the civil rights and all the things that were going on, and some of the speeches that are most profound and most memorable, they weren't always because they were great speeches. There was one I was listening to. It was supposed to be the speech that Dr. King gave the day before he was murdered. He made the statement, I'm not fearing any man. You know, that's a personal view. That's his personal view. But when we see what happened, he made a statement like that. And as a result of him making that statement, some say he prophesied his own death. No, he didn't prophesy his own death. It was a word of prophecy because it came to pass. But I'm sure, like any man, to quote him, he would love to live a long life. But it wasn't his trust in men doing God's will. It was his trust in men failing to give and live up to the things that God has called us to. And I'm talking about this occasion here now because we, like Dr. King, are in a time frame when we have some things to do. There's some things that God are doing and that are going to call for people, are going to call on people. And as it calls on these people, you will be in that position where you'll be just like the woman that had the bread, her and her son, and they just wanted to eat it before they died. But here came someone and said, well, just fix me that bread. And the woman actually did. She made the hot cake for the bread and she gave it to the prophet of God versus feeding her and her son. And as a result of that, it says that oil began to flow that the woman could not contain. Her blessings overtook her. So, but that was only because of her obedience. As she just ate her bread, she had to first change her mindset. She had to first rise to the occasion. Rising to the occasion isn't an easy thing to do. As a matter of fact, I love to talk about Jesus in the Bible when Jesus was there in the garden. He knew what he was called for. He knew the occasion presented before him. But when he went to talk to his father and he had made up in his mind, he said, if it be possible, remove this cup from me. How many of us have cups today? I'm sure all of us do. But how many of us will stand up and tell someone I'm this and that as it pertains to God? I'm a man of God. I'm a woman of God. I got this gift. I got that gift. I do this or I do that in my church. Don't feel bad, because as Jesus went there before his father, he said, If it be possible, remove this cup. Nevertheless, not my will, but thy will be done. He had submitted. But then when he came back, to show you how opinions, you got to get beyond them. When he came back and he had asked the disciples to actually watch, they had fallen asleep. So what did he ask them to do then? He said, watch and pray. If we're busy, it's kind of hard to be idle. But as he went back before his father with that same request, looks a little strange, don't it? He went back with the same request, something he had said, nevertheless, thy will be done. But when he came back the second time, they were asleep again. And he was a little upset because he had asked some things of them. They weren't prepared. They were not prepared. As a matter of fact, because they weren't prepared, he wasn't prepared. Some would argue that, but if he was prepared, there would have been no second and third time. He had to get prepared, and his preparation came when he got beyond the opinions, the need for, the attachment to. So the third time when he came back, he told them, sleep on. And after that, he said, arise. He that betrayed me is at hand. There comes a point where we need to realize who we are, what it is we're called to do. It's good to have some people around you that's supportive. It's good to have some people around you that seem to believe in the things you believe in. But you got to know that when the occasion comes, not everybody is going to rise to it. Not everybody's going to be able to rise to it. And even if you have had that occasion and you didn't rise to it, it's going to come back around. You may be just like Jesus. It may take you that third time before you actually rise to the occasion. But what's important is that you rise to that occasion. And that's where the blessings lie. And you're rising to the occasion. The situations and circumstances are going to always present themselves. And I want to transition here. I've talked a lot about the occasion. Let's talk about some of the things that's going on now. As they would say, these are current events. So I want to show you a couple of videos. Yeah, I have enough time for both of them. This first one here is about a special accounting bulletin. Most people may not be aware of this, but we live in a society today that's changing. We live in a society today that there are some things that are coming about, and whether we are aware of them or not, it's not going to stop them. They are going to happen. And so as we look, I want you to listen to this video that I'm about to play now.
President may have just handed the election to the former president. I'm talking about a little covered news story that happened on May 31st, right before the long Memorial Day weekend when the rest of us were thinking about eating hot dogs and spending time with our families. The president signed away 50 million American votes. That's when he vetoed the repeal of SAB 121. Now, if you've never heard of Special Accounting Bulletin 121, I promise you, you will. It's an accounting rule designed to do one thing, and that's to stop banks from holding crypto assets. Now, in a rare show of unity, both Democrats and Republicans in the House and the Senate both voted to get rid of SAB 121 so big banks could come into crypto. The president? Well, he chose to ignore not only his own party, but the 50 million American voters that own crypto. Friends, hear me. If you are sitting there thinking this is the death of crypto, nothing could be further from the truth. There is nothing that can stop the march of crypto adoption in this country. Now, not this president, but the former president has already stated he is 100% committed to Americans owning, holding, and trading crypto. Now, many folks will go ahead and buy Bitcoin in hopes of riding out this next bull market higher. And they are right. Bitcoin will go much higher, to at least 150K in my opinion. But think about it. If you're not already rich, you can't get rich anymore just by owning Bitcoin. Friends, I need you to understand that if you're just relying on Bitcoin to move the needle on your net worth, it's not enough. And even if you have a lot of money, you've missed 300% in gains already. The good news is that is pennies. compared to the 500x returns I see coming up ahead from a tiny subsector of coins that the market is broadly ignoring. Now, I've spent the last 5 months traveling, researching, and working with the world's top crypto analysts, investors, software developers for one goal: to track down what I believe will be the single biggest source of wealth for you from this new crypto bull market. And that's why on June 26 at 8 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to share my research findings with you for free. Now, the only way to join me is through my free e-letter called the Digital Asset Daily. I want you to join below to make sure that you don't miss out on what I believe could be your last chance to make the most amount of money you have ever seen from the biggest, longest running crypto bull market the market has ever seen. Again, in the interim, to receive my most timely updates, please click on the link below, join me at my free e-letter, the Digital Asset Daily, and let us begin this journey once again. Friends, as I always like to say, I want you to always remember, let the game come to you.
I let that play through his marketing scheme because I wanted you to hear the last thing he said. Friends, let the game come to you. When you think about the game when it comes to money, it's been one that we have been playing, but we have never really mastered. It's almost like as soon as you get close to something, it sort of changes. But the game is the game. And I want to share one other thing with you. This video that you just heard, it was superseded by this one. And both of these two guys had one thing in common. They claimed to have a way for you to save money. I'm only showing this because I want you to realize how serious it is. These are individuals here that are staking their reputation, and they are, they're putting this information out for a particular crowd. And these are people with money, if you listen and catch what's being said. Now, as you watch this second video, this video here came before the one that you just heard. But listen to what they have in common.
Of Chairman Xi. Now, can you imagine the Dems having that kind of... Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me for today's talk. There's an urgent situation unfolding in America, and today I'll unveil all the unnerving details. So let's get started with a critical question. Where were you on March 9th, 2022, when President Biden signed the death warrant on American freedom? On that day, in a hush ceremony at the White House, without the approval of Congress, the states, or the American people, Biden signed into law Executive Order 14067. Buried in his order are a few paragraphs titled Section 4. The language in Section 4 makes Order 14067 the most treacherous act by a sitting president in the history of our republic, because Section 4 sets the stage for legal government surveillance of all U.S. citizens, total control over your bank accounts and purchases, and the ability to silence all dissenting voices for good. In this new war on freedom, the Dems aren't coming for your guns. No, they're thinking much bigger than that. They're coming for your money. And it's already started. Hi, my name is Jim Rickards. I'm a former advisor to the Pentagon, the White House, Congress, the CIA, and the Department of Defense. I'm also an attorney, investment banker, and author of 7 books on currencies and international economics. When places like Fox, CNBC, or Bloomberg want to know what's about to shake up the global economy, they call me. Most of all, like you, I'm a proud American patriot. The disturbing predictions you're about to see are based on my independent research and my contacts in the intelligence community. I've never made this kind of public announcement before, but it's my duty to pull the alarm. This is what I believe Section 4 of Biden's order means for all Americans. The U.S. dollar will be made obsolete. Soon your cash will be confiscated or will simply be worthless paper. The cash currency we have now will be replaced with a new programmable digital token. But the truth is, few outside the deep state recognize Biden's move for what it really is. If my predictions are correct, this is so much more sinister than simply replacing the cash dollar with a new digitized version. Friend, this new currency will allow for total control of all American citizens, because every digital dollar will be programmed by the government. That means they will be able to turn on or turn off your money at will.
Now, if that isn't enough to scare you, imagine hearing that video that you just watched. maybe a year ago. And then later you hear the second video. That becomes reality. You heard something that sort of set your antennas up, and here comes something behind it that lets you know that you really need to be alarmed. And I shared those two things with you not to alarm you. But as I said, when God is doing some things, sometimes people mistake it. I don't claim to be a prophet or any of that, but I truly believe when I read the Bible where it speaks of the wealth transitions that are supposed to take place, I think they're going on. And I look at what's going on now in the world. There's more to this thing, because just as though there was slavery and America was seen as such a great powerhouse, even beyond slavery, that power that America had is slowly going away. The dollar is being devalued, is the term that they're using. And I learned a little bit about why that is, and I'll share that with you before this next video. It said that the United States, at one point, its money was backed by gold. And that makes perfect sense. I mean, you got the gold, you got the money, you got the value. But then when they took the money and the gold, when they uncoupled them, that put the people in power with the checkbook. And that's what Dr. King he referenced writing a blank check. Americans wrote a blank check. Americans wrote plenty of blank checks, to the point of the trillions of dollars deficit that we have. And I learned why that is. They were able to do that because when everything was tied to gold, even places like Russia and let's say China, when they did business, they did it in US dollars, which assured the US that they were the power to be. And when they uncoupled the gold, nothing there to control the pen, they started writing checks and writing checks. And in each year we heard how it got higher and higher and higher and higher. But there's something going on now where the people that were under the US's, I wouldn't say control, but because of the financial situation, they didn't benefit. Those individuals have partnered and they're coming up with a financial system of their own where they will no longer be using the US dollar, which means that all the debt that the United States has in the past, when they dealt with Russia and people like that, they did that because they were the financial bully. Well, imagine not being the financial bully anymore. So why am I sharing all this concerning money? There's a saying, the scripture says money answers all things, but it also says the love of money is the root of all evil. But the Bible also says he will give us wisdom to get wealth. This is my last video for you. Listen.
So is it racist to intentionally do business with your ethnic group? Well, you got to know that in the Asian community, a dollar circulates up to 28 days before it is spent with outsiders. Jewish community, it circulates 19 days. In the white community, 17 days. But in the black community, guess what? Only 6 hours. Did you know that over 90% of black people's income is spent outside of the black community? You don't have to be a rocket scientist to see what that means. So there's just no way you can expect to have any kind of economic stability when you have that kind of cash outflow. So keeping money in a tighter circle makes the circle stronger. While most ethnic groups realize that there is strength in numbers, black people, we don't necessarily see strength in grouping ourselves with other black people because we've been conditioned to think that the white man's ice is colder than ours. That means we think that black businesses are inferior and white businesses are superior. So this mindset is detrimental to black people's wealth building potential and power.
Okay, so what he just said was, if we don't change our mindset, the impact of the following lack of preparation. What are the impact? It should have been, what are the impact of the following? Lack of preparation. We haven't been prepared, and there's something that's happening right now. The risk or the change. The risk or the change. Then there's fear, and then there's opinions. It's one thing, and I want to let you all know how you need to look at what you have seen, what God has allowed you to see. I'm one of those individuals that God has shown me so much. I can remember it was like 20 years ago, I was dealing in penny stock, and I had purchased some penny stock, and it was like a fraction of a penny. It was so cheap that I had like 330,000 shares of it, and it was less than $9. I couldn't even sell it to get $9 because $9 was the minimum. And I let that stock go because I had no choice. But 20 years later, some company took that stock, and I actually went to go and check on some funds from my present job that used the same company that managed that particular stock. And when they told me I had 150,000 in my account, I thought they were crazy. I went and took out 33,000 just in case it was real and somebody didn't know it. But when I took out that 33,000, the money that I had in my account, I watched it go from that probably like 100,000 to literally 400,000 to 500,000. And I'm sharing that with you because, and no, I don't have that now. That was stock. I wasn't used to stock. So naturally, as it went down, my thought was it'll go back up. And plus, I'd already spent my 30,000 and we had bought some things. But to make a long story short, I saw what a penny can do. I saw how change can occur. So as God allowed me to see that. And there was another situation where I was involved with something. And two of my friends on here now can attest to it. It was concerning Bitcoin when it was less than 1,500 or 3,000. When I was investing, not just for myself, I was trying to invest it for others as well, so they would benefit, or trying to get them to join this organization I was with. That organization was very profitable. I remember a guy coming to me and saying that he didn't do something when he should have. And as a result of that, I received 4 of his Bitcoins. I literally gave him 4 of those Bitcoins. At the time, they wasn't that much, and it was going so successful. Shortly after that, it didn't go well. But I didn't worry about those 4 Bitcoins because it was a decision I made. But as we look at what's going on, there's something God has been bringing me to and showing me when it comes to wealth, probably because I'm not the least bit concerned with it. I've learned to be content wherever I am. But as far as his people go, there's some knowledge that if we just get a hint, he's shown us enough his history, if we get a hint of what we have the potential to do. That brother's comment was right on point. He said that, is it racist to support our own? We saw where Bitcoin and what it did. And if you remember, a lot of us didn't do anything with Bitcoin because what were they saying? Oh, that's for drug dealers. Oh, that's for criminals. Oh, this and oh, that. But what did those 2 gentlemen just tell you? That there's a digital dollar coming about, which is no different than what Bitcoin is. So in other words, that thing that we watch perform those great accomplishments, those great feats, Bitcoin, it has shown us what can be done. In school, or even in the college institutions at higher degrees, you have to prove things. People just don't accept it. But if you look at Bitcoin as a case scenario, you saw what it has done and what it's still doing. But it's not Bitcoin that I'm concerned with. And those 2 gentlemen I showed you, each one of them had a program that they wanted to push because they are in a position where they can get people with money to spend a certain way. I'm not concerned with people with money. I'm not concerned with borrowing from them, lending to them. If I'm in need, I'm willing to pay whatever charges they get to get it. But I'm concerned with the wealth transfer that is potentially has the potential to take place. If the fear is what Biden is doing and the American dollar going digital, how much more profitable would it be for those same people that are stating what the dollar is going to do to actually get behind something as a people other than the dollar? My brother-in-law pointed out to me The government has always had a digital dollar. That's how when you tell you, they can tell you what Bitcoin is worth because they have a dollar in the game. They've always had a dollar in the game. So that's really not much change that's coming except for the fact that currency as we know it is going to change. But what it does, it did open my eyes up to, as in we have a lot more control as a people than we realize. Dr. King didn't mention the word reparation because that wasn't a term that was coined at that time, reparation. But he did mention everything that he touched on pertained to the need for finance, the need for something that's going to make a difference. And I submit to you that that's something that can make a difference and is going to make a difference, is already in existence. But it's not the US dollar. It's something that if we as a people can come together and agree that this is where our money is. It's like my brother said concerning president. If we decide this is where we're casting our vote, who wins the presidency? That individual. Is he going to do what he said? Probably not. But if we've seen with cryptocurrency how it works, if we get behind a certain currency to where we are using it, we're spending it, we're investing our money in that, and we're using it within our community. The brothers comment about money being spent in our community. It changes just like that. And what changes it is the fact that not everybody will take something that someone had enough nerves to say, this is a black coin or a black token. So I'm just introducing you to something that I'll share more with you about in the future. But I want to go out the same way I came in with Dr. King's words. Listen.
So we suffer from a kind of poverty of the spirit, which stands in glaring contrast to our scientific and technological abundance. The problem is, my friends, that we have learned to fly the air like birds, and we have learned to swim the seas like fish, and yet we haven't learned to walk the earth like brothers and sisters. Racial injustice is still the black man's burden and the white man's shame. So wherever we live in America, we have to face the fact honestly that racial discrimination is present. So don't get complacent. Certainly we've made some strides. We made some progress here and there, but it hasn't been enough. It hasn't been fast enough. And although we've come a long, long way, we still have a long, long way to go. In 1863, the Negro was freed from the bondage of physical slavery through the Emancipation Proclamation signed by Abraham Lincoln. But the Negro was not given any land to make that freedom meaningful. And you know, it was something like having a man in jail for years and years, and then you suddenly discover that this man is innocent. And go to him and say, now you are free. The man's been unjustly jailed for 35 or 40 years, and you just put him out of jail saying, now you are free. You don't give him any bus fare to get to town, no money to buy any clothes, no money to get something to eat. This is what happened to the black man in this country. I can't limit my concern to the middle class. I can't limit my concern to this particular situation where a Negro comes and says, I'm the first this. I'm just tired of the first Negro. I want some seconds and some thirds and some fourths. civil rights movement has to address itself to this, and the nation has to do it. You see, we are such a rich nation and affluent nation. We often don't see the poor. There are some, you see, most white people can't see the poor because they live in the suburbs. And then they get in town in these big cities on expressways. They don't know nothing about Watts. They've never been there. They don't know anything about Huff in Cleveland or the west side or the south side of Chicago or Harlem. They've never seen it. And they allow the poor to become invisible. And a lot of Negroes, you know, who have somehow sailed or floated out of the backwaters or the muddy waters, and they've kind of been able to ease out into the fresh-flowing waters of the mainstream, have forgotten the stench of the backwater. And I can hear a voice saying that wasn't enough. I was hungry, and you fed me not. I was naked, and you clothed me not. I needed shelter, and you didn't give it to me. I needed a drink of water. And in a world that's 3/4 water, you made me pay a water bill.
This generation
And turn their hearts to our Father, which art in heaven. And turn their hearts to our Father, Lord of creation.
tell me who
Will it be you?
tell me who will it be you tell me who will it be you
Will it be you?
will it be you
Will it be you?
tell me who will it be you
Will it be you?
will it be you
Will it be you?
tell me who will it be you
Will it be you?
tell me who
Tell me who?
tell me who
Tell me who?
will it be you
Will it be?
There's a change on the horizon. If we rise to the occasion, we will be able to rise above circumstances and situations. Rise with me. See you all next Friday. Peace and blessings. I pray something has been said that will stay with you until then, and even longer, as a matter of fact. Be encouraged. It's only beginning. God is still on the throne. To God be the glory. Peace and blessings.